Hi, and thanks again for joining me. Some months ago I posted a video on the proper way to hold the cello bow. This video is a follow-up to that. We'll be talking about some of the particulars of a good bow stroke. So we'll start by talking about the placement of the bow on the strings of the instrument. Although there are exceptions, we generally want to keep the bow midway between the bridge and the edge of the fingerboard, generally about like so. If we go too far towards the bridge, we get into an area that is often called Sood Ponticello, which literally means on the bridge. The sound is very distinctive. It's kind of hard to describe. The way that I usually describe it is reminiscent of one's fingernails on a blackboard. Sometimes composers do want that, but for most of the time we don't want that sound, so more towards the middle. At the other extreme, if we bring it up towards the fingerboard or even above the fingerboard, excuse me, that's called sul tasto. Again, sometimes composers want that, but it tends to soften our sound, makes it a little bit makes our sound a little bit more indistinct, a little more feathery, if you will. So generally we try to avoid that as well. And in addition to that, if we play too much above the fingerboard, we'll get a lot of rosin dust on the fingerboard, and we generally prefer not to do that either. Next, we generally want to keep the bow, the direction of the bow that is, pretty much parallel to the direction of the bridge, right? If the bridge here is defining a line, we want the line defined by the bow to be parallel to that of the bridge. Something like this. It doesn't have to be exact, but we certainly want it to be pretty close if possible. Oftentimes students will want to bring their arm in towards them as they make a down bow and ending up with something like this. That is something better avoided. At the same time, they may continue that circular motion when going in the other direction, bringing the tip of the bow too far back when making an up bow. Again, that is something we prefer not to do. Parallel is generally better. Like so. This is probably obvious to anybody who is experienced in playing the cello, but if you're still new to it and still perhaps trying to master a good solid bow hold and a bow stroke, it's worth noticing that your hand and wrist position will be different when you're playing near the frog versus at the tip. For example, let's say I make a nice long bow on the C string. So up here, my wrist is bent. I have a good secure hold. Now, as I keep the bow in the correct place and direction, notice that the shape of my hand and wrist has altered somewhat as it's gone away from the strings. And that will be true on any of the strings, although slightly differently from one string to the next. The opposite extreme would be our A string. Perhaps a little bit more of a wrist bend since I'm further to the left of my body on the A string than I was on the C string. And as I extend outward for the full down bow, again, the hand and wrist is in, let me come down a little bit so we can see that. I'm now slouching so that we can see my hand more clearly. There we go. And then as we go back towards the frog, my wrist comes up and my hand changes position a little bit again. So don't be afraid of those changing hand shapes as you're bowing back and forth and find yourself at the tip or at the frog or in the middle. Do not use too much pressure of the bow on the cello strings. Most of the time, just the weight of the bow itself, with whatever additional weight there may be from your hold on it, is plenty to get a good sound out of your cello. Now, it may sometimes happen that while you're working on something, you'll notice what I call a crunchy sound. perhaps something like this. That is usually caused by either of two things, sometimes both. It may mean that we're pressing down a little bit too hard on the string. If we lighten up a little bit, it tends to clear up. And the other thing that can clear it up as well is to simply move the bow more steadily, which is easily done if you simply try to speed up the bow a little bit. So to go from crunchy, unsteady and too much pressure, to steady and less pressure should clear that crunchiness right up. Remember, if you hear the crunchiness, less pressure, longer bow stroke. I think you'll find that as you continue to improve and that you develop better control and more skill, that you will be able to expand on some of these general principles. But for right now, it's probably good to start by mastering all of these particulars. If you have any questions or comments, please leave a comment for me on this video. Alternately, you can contact me at my website. Well, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again next time.